Look, before I get into this, I need you to understand something about the road. Most people, they get in their cars, they turn up the radio, and they disconnect, and they see the world through a windshield. It's like watching a movie to them. Nothing out there is real. The pedestrian on the corner, just an obstacle, and the old lady crossing the street, just something slowing them down. They got schedules, they got meetings, they got a coffee order they can't be late for, and they think the world stops spinning if they don't get to where they're going exactly when they planned. But when you're on a bike, there is no glass, and there is no disconnect. You smell the rain coming before it hits. You feel the temperature drop. You see the things people in cars ignore, and you see the fear in a stray dog's eyes. You see the kid sitting alone on a stoop, and you see the disrespect. That's the thing that burns me up the most, and the casual disrespect. We got a code in this club. You respect the ones who paved the road before you. If you agree that real men and real women and always respect their elders, hit that like button right now. Let me know I'm talking to people who were raised right. It was a Tuesday, and I remember because Tuesday is the day Tiny brings in those donuts his wife makes, the ones with the maple glaze. The weather was garbage, not a storm, just that miserable and gray spit that soaks right through your leathers and chills you to the bone. The kind of day that makes your joints ache. Now, for a guy like me, and a little ache in the knee is annoying. For someone like Clara, it's a battle. Let me tell you about Clara. She's 88 years old, and she's got white hair that she curls every single morning, even if she ain't going nowhere special. And she wears this beige coat that's probably 30 years old, but it's clean pressed, not a button missing. She's from that generation that didn't throw things away, and they fixed them. They respected things. They respected people. She lives over on 4th Street, in one of those walk-ups. Her husband, Frank, he passed on a decade ago, and her kids, they moved out of state. Send a card on Christmas, maybe a call on her birthday, but mostly Clara is on her own, and she's proud. She doesn't ask for help, and she grabs that silver walker with the tennis balls on the feet, and she handles her business. So, it's raining, it's cold, the wind is whipping trash down the gutter, and Clara needs to get to the clinic across town. Just a checkup, nothing major. But for her, getting across town isn't just a trip, it's a mission. She has to time it right, and she has to get down the stairs. She has to walk the 2 blocks to the bus stop. On a sunny day, that's 20 minutes. On a day like this, and with the sidewalk slick and her hands shaking from the damp cold, it took her nearly 40. She gets to the stop. There's no bench, no shelter, and just a pole with a sign that says, Route 12. So she stands there, 88 years old, leaning on her walker, the rain matting down her hair, shivering, and she's clutching her purse tight against her chest to keep her bus pass dry. Then, here comes the bus. Big blue monster. The driver, let's call him Speedy, and I found out later this guy thinks he's qualifying for the Indy 500. He cares about one thing, the clock. He hits his stops, he opens the doors, he closes them, and if you're not on, you're gone. He pulls up to the curb, but he doesn't pull up close. He leaves a gap, a big gap, and maybe 2 feet of rushing water and sludge between the curb and the bottom step. To you or me, that's a hop. To Clara, that's the Grand Canyon. You know, and riding a motorcycle in the rain ain't like driving a car. In a car, you turn on the wipers, you crank up the heat, and you forget about it. On a bike, and the rain is the enemy. It turns the asphalt into a mirror. The oil comes up from the road, and making slick rainbow patches that can send a 700-pound machine sliding sideways into a guardrail before you can even blink. Every turn is a gamble, and every stop sign is a test. But we didn't care. Not today. We hit the main avenue in a tight formation, 2 by 2. I was in the lead left side. Tiny was on my right, and behind us, 48 brothers riding wheel to wheel. If you've never seen a pack this big moving through a city, it's something else. It's not just traffic, and it's a force of nature. We move like water. One brain, one mission. The spray from the tires was kicking up these tall rooster tails of dirty water, soaking our boots, and soaking our jeans. My knuckles were tight on the throttle. The wind was whipping my face, stinging my eyes, but I didn't pull my visor down, and I wanted to see everything sharp. We knew the route. Route 12 runs north, winds through the business district, and then hits the on-ramp for Interstate 95. And once that bus hits the highway, he's gone. He's doing 65, and we can't stop him safely without risking the passengers. We had to catch him on the surface streets, and we had to catch him before he escaped into the speed of the highway. We had maybe 3 miles. I signaled with my left hand. 2 fingers down, tighten up, and the pack squeezed together. The rumble of 50 engines bounced off the brick buildings, creating this echo that sounded like the world was cracking open. And people on the sidewalk stopped walking. They looked up. They saw the grim faces. They saw the leather. They saw that we weren't just cruising. We were hunting. And I checked my mirror. The line of headlights stretched back as far as I could see, cutting through the gray gloom of the rain. It was a beautiful sight. A scary sight, but beautiful. This is what brotherhood looks like. You mess with one of ours, or in this case, you mess with the people we protect, and you get the whole family. And we blew through a yellow light, then another. We weren't speeding exactly, but we weren't slowing down for potholes either. Then I saw it, about 4 blocks up, that big and blue boxy shape lumbering through the traffic. Route 12. Got him. I muttered to myself. I tapped my headset. Target in sight. 4 blocks. Keep it steady, and do not spook him yet. Copy that, Jax. Tiny's voice crackled in my ear. We closed the distance. The bus was stuck behind a delivery truck. Fate was on our side, and Speedy was probably back there fuming, honking his horn, checking his precious watch, sweating over losing another 30 seconds. He didn't know his time was already up, and we didn't just roll up behind him. That's amateur hour. If you roll up behind, he just keeps driving. He ignores you. No, we needed to own the road. I gave the signal, and split. The pack divided. 25 bikes peeled off to the left lane, 25 stayed in the right. We accelerated. The engines roared, a deep and guttural growl that shook the puddles on the street. We surged forward, flanking the bus on both sides. Imagine sitting in that bus, and you're looking out the window at the rain, maybe reading a book on your phone. Suddenly, the light changes. The sound changes. A shadow falls over the windows, and you look left, bikers. You look right, bikers, big men, serious men. Machines that look like they were built from scrap iron and attitude, and I pulled up right alongside the driver's window. I was close enough to touch the bus. I could see him. Speedy. He was a thin guy, wearing that blue uniform cap and chewing gum with his mouth open. He was staring straight ahead, focused on the bumper of the truck in front of him. He didn't see me yet. I revved my engine. VROM, and he jumped in his seat. He turned his head. Our eyes met. I didn't smile. I didn't wave. I just stared at him. The look on his face changed instantly, and he went from annoyed to confused. Then, he looked in his other mirror and saw Tiny on the other side. And then he looked in his rear view and saw a sea of headlights filling the street behind him. Confusion turned to panic. He realized he was swimming in a shark tank, and he hit the brakes a little, even though the truck was moving. He was hesitating. Now, I yelled into the headset. I gunned it. I shot past the front bumper of the bus, and Tiny was right with me. We cut in front of him, weaving across the lanes, crossing our paths like a zipper closing. We slowed down. The delivery truck ahead turned right, and, leaving the road wide open. Speedy probably wanted to floor it. He probably wanted to weave around us. But you can't weave around a wall. I slowed the bike down to a crawl, and 10 miles an hour, 5 miles an hour. Speedy slammed on his brakes. The bus tires hissed on the wet pavement. I heard the squeal of the rubber struggling for grip, and the bus lurched forward, dipping its nose as it came to a halt just inches from my rear fender. I put my boots down on the asphalt. I kicked the kickstand out. Clang. And to my right, Tiny did the same. Behind us, 48 other kickstands hit the ground. We killed the engines. This is the part that always gets them. The noise is scary, and sure. But the silence is terrifying. 1 second, the air is filled with the roar of 50 V-twins. The next second, and nothing but the sound of the rain hitting the metal roofs and the heavy breathing of the city. We climbed off the bikes. Slowly. Deliberately. We didn't run to the bus. And we didn't scream. We just stood there. We formed a semi-circle around the front of that bus. 50 of us. Arms crossed. Water dripping off our helmets. And leather creaking as we shifted our weight. Traffic behind the bus was stopped. Cars started honking. Beep! Beep! But then the drivers saw who was blocking the road. And the honking stopped real quick. Nobody wanted to be the guy who annoyed the Motor Mafia today. Speedy was frozen. I could see him through the giant windshield, and he was gripping that steering wheel like it was the only thing keeping him from falling off the face of the earth. He locked the doors, and I heard the thunk of the pneumatic locks engaging. He thought a glass door was going to protect him. He thought he could just sit there and wait us out. I walked forward, and my boots splashed in the puddles. I walked right to the center of the lane, directly in front of the massive grill of the bus. I looked up at him, and he looked like a deer in headlights, except he was the one driving the headlights. He picked up his radio, probably calling dispatch, probably screaming for help. And, "There's a gang! They blocked the road! Send police!" Let him call. By the time anyone got here, we'd be done. And besides, we weren't breaking any laws. We were just having a conversation. A very serious conversation about customer service standards. I pointed at him. Just one finger. Then I pointed at the ground. "Get out!" And he shook his head frantically. No, no way. I could read his lips. I took a step closer. I walked around to the driver's side door. The glass panels were splashed with mud, and the same mud he sprayed on Clara. I tapped on the glass with my knuckles. It wasn't a hard knock. It was a polite knock. Rap, rap, rap. He flinched with every tap, and Tiny came up behind me. Tiny is 6'7". He blocks out the sun. He leaned in close to the glass and just fogged it up with his breath, and he didn't even have to make a face. Tiny's face is a warning label all on its own. Inside the bus, the passengers were standing up, and they were pressing their faces against the windows. They weren't scared of us anymore. They were curious. A few of them had been on the bus when Clara got left behind, and they knew. I saw a young guy in a hoodie point at the driver and then give me a thumbs up. The court of public opinion had already reached a verdict. Guilty. And I looked at Speedy again. He was sweating now, despite the cold. He was trapped. He couldn't go forward. He couldn't go back. He couldn't fly away, and he had to face the music. I pointed to the door release lever again. I mouthed the words slowly so he wouldn't misunderstand. Open the door. He looked at his radio, and no answer. He looked at the traffic. No help. He looked at me. He realized he had two choices. He could sit in there until he ran out of gas, or he could come out and take his medicine like a man. His hand shook as he reached for the lever, and the hydraulic hiss of the door opening was the sweetest sound I'd heard all day. It sounded like justice. The doors folded back. The steps lowered. I didn't step up, and I stayed on the ground. This was his territory up there. I wanted him on mine. Step out, I said. My voice was calm, deep, cutting through the sound of the rain. And, we need to talk about your schedule. The doors hiss open. Speedy doesn't look at her. He's looking at his watch. He's tapping his fingers on the steering wheel. Tap, and tap, tap. Clara shuffles forward. She lifts the walker. It's heavy for her. She tries to bridge the gap, putting the legs of the walker onto the bus step, but the bus is high. Her arms are weak. She gets two legs of the walker up, but it slips, clatters against the metal. Hey, watch the paint, Speedy yells. And that's the first thing he says to her. Not, do you need a hand? Not, take your time, ma'am. Just worrying about the paint on a city bus that's already covered in dents. And Clara flinches. I'm sorry, she says. Her voice is barely a whisper. The wind takes it away. I'm trying. She lifts the walk, and she steps into the puddle. The freezing water goes right over her shoes, soaking her socks. She doesn't complain. She just grunts with the effort and trying to hoist herself up that first giant step. Her hand is shaking so bad she can hardly grip the rail. Come on, lady, Speedy barks. I ain't got all day, and scheduled to keep. She looks up at him, water dripping off her nose. Please, she says. I just need a moment. My pass. It's in my bag. And she lets go of the rail with one hand to reach into her purse. That was her mistake. She loses her balance. She stumbles back. She catches herself, but the walker slides back down to the pavement with a loud crash. Speedy sighs. The kind of sigh that says you are wasting my life. He looks in the rearview mirror, and he sees the empty road ahead. He sees a green light up the block. Forget it, he says. He hits the button. The hydraulics hiss. The doors start to close, and Clara is standing right there. The doors swing shut, smacking the front of her walker. She has to yank it back so she doesn't get dragged. Wait, she cries out. Please? And the next one isn't for an hour. Speedy didn't even look. He punched the gas. The bus roared. The back wheels spun, and shooting a spray of mud and dirty water right over Clara, covered her beige coat, splattered her face. He left her there, 88 years old, soaking wet and mud on her face, trembling on the curb while the Route 12 bus faded into the rain. Now, Speedy thought he got away with it. He thought nobody saw, and just another invisible old lady. Who's she gonna tell? Who's gonna care? But he made a mistake, a big one. See, across the street, there's a little gas station, and then parked at pump number 4 was a beat-up Harley Sportster, and standing next to that bike, pumping gas, was a kid we call Rookie. Rookie is young, and he's still earning his patch. He's got a lot to learn about riding in formation, but he's got a good heart. He was watching the whole thing. He saw the struggle, and he saw the puddle. He saw the doors close. He saw the mud fly. Rookie didn't move for a second. He just stared, the gas nozzle clicking off in his hand, and he couldn't believe what he just saw. A human being treating another human being like trash. He hung up the nozzle. He didn't even go inside to get his receipt, and he pulled his phone out. His hands were shaking, and it wasn't from the cold. It was rage. Pure, white, hot rage. I was at the clubhouse, pouring my second cup of coffee, and listening to the rain hammer on the tin roof. It was peaceful. The boys were playing cards. Then my phone buzzed on the bar top. I picked it up. Yeah, and Jax. It was Rookie. His voice sounded tight, like he was about to cry or punch a wall. Jax, you're not going to believe this. "What's wrong, kid? And you slide out in the rain?" "No. I'm at 4th and Main. I just watched a bus driver, Jax. He just left an old lady. She's barely standing up, and he knocked her walker down and just drove off. Left her in the mud." The room went quiet. I didn't say anything to silence the guys. They just felt it, and they saw my posture change. They saw my hand grip the phone until the plastic creaked. She hurt?" I asked. My voice was low, and the kind of low that makes the hair on your arm stand up. "She's crying, Jax. She's trying to wipe the mud off her coat with a tissue. It's bad." I closed my eyes, and I pictured my own grandmother. I pictured the women who raised us. The women who scrubbed floors and worked double shifts so we could eat, and I pictured someone doing that to them. "Which way did the bus go?" I asked. "Heading towards the highway on-ramp. He's moving fast." "Stay with her," I told Rookie, "and get her out of the rain. Put her in the station. Buy her a coffee. Do not leave her side on it." "What about the bus?" I opened my eyes. I looked at Tiny, and I looked at Breaker. I looked at 40 hard men who were suddenly very interested in my phone call. "Got him," I said. I hung up. I took one last sip of coffee, but I didn't taste it. All I could taste was iron. "Tenny," I said, "put the cards down." "What's up, boss?" Tiny asked, already reaching for his helmet. "And we got a bully," I said. "Bus driver, Route 12, thinks he's tough, thinks he can push around an 80-year-old lady and leave her in the gutter," and the sound of chairs scraping against the floor was deafening. 40 guys stood up at once. Jackets were zipped. Gloves were pulled on. There wasn't a lot of talking, and there didn't need to be. We all knew the code. You don't touch kids. You don't touch animals. And you sure as hell don't disrespect the elderly. "Where is he?" Tiny asked, and cracking his knuckles. "Northbound," I said. "He's trying to make time." I walked to the door and kicked it open. The wind blew rain into the clubhouse, but I didn't feel it. "Let's go help him with his schedule," I said. We walked out to the bikes. 50 engines fired up. It sounded like thunder, and it sounded like Judgment Day. We rolled out of the lot, tires hissing on the wet asphalt. We weren't riding for fun today. We weren't riding for freedom, and we were riding for Clara. And Speedy. He had no idea what was coming for him. He was checking his watch, smiling, thinking he saved 2 minutes. And he didn't know he was about to lose a whole lot more than time. He came down those steps like he was walking the plank. 1 step, pause, looking around. 2 steps, and he was holding on to the railing so hard his knuckles were white. When his feet finally hit the pavement, he looked small, up in that bus seat, looking down on an old lady, and he probably felt like a king. Down here, surrounded by chrome leather and men who eat nails for breakfast, he looked like exactly what he was. A bully who got caught, and the rain was still coming down. It soaked his blue uniform shirt instantly. He didn't have his hat on. He left it in the bus. He stood there, water dripping off his nose, and shivering. I don't know if he was shivering from the cold or the fear. Probably both. I didn't do anything illegal," he stammered. His voice was high, squeaky, and he wouldn't look me in the eye. He was looking at my boots. He was looking at Tiny's fists. "Illegal?" I said. I kept my voice low. "Soft. And the kind of soft that's worse than a scream. Why ain't lawyers, Speedy? We don't care about the law. We care about the code." "I have a schedule," he said, and trying to find a little backbone. "Management rides me if I'm late. You guys are making me late right now. You're blocking traffic." And he pointed a shaking finger at the line of cars behind the bus. I stepped into his space. I got so close I could smell the stale coffee on his breath. I loomed over him. "And you're worried about traffic?" I asked. "You're worried about minutes on a clock?" "Yes! It's my job." "And what about the job of being a human being?" I asked. "And you think that stops when you put on the uniform?" He blinked. "I don't know what you're talking about." "The lady." Tiny rumbled from behind me, and Tiny's voice sounds like gravel grinding in a mixer. "The lady with the walker. The one you left in the mud." Speedy went pale, and all the color drained right out of his face. He knew exactly who we were talking about. He couldn't pretend anymore. She was taking too long," he whispered. "And I waited. I did. But she dropped her walker, and I couldn't wait all day." "She's 88 years old," I said. "She moves slow because her body hurts, and every step is pain for her. And you shut the door on her. You splashed mud in her face." "I didn't mean to splash her. It was an accident." "And leaving her wasn't an accident," I snapped. "That was a choice. You chose the clock over the person. You chose to be a coward." I let that word hang in the air. Coward. And it's a heavy word. It cuts deep if there's any part of you that still thinks you're a man. Right now, I need to ask you something. And if you think a man is defined by how he treats the weak, not by how fast he drives, if you think this guy deserves a serious reality check, hit that like button, and let's show him what real respect looks like. Speedy looked around at the circle of bikers. He realized nobody was coming to save him. The police weren't here, and his manager wasn't here. It was just us, the rain, and the truth. What are you gonna do to me?" he asked. His voice cracked. He was terrified we were gonna beat him, but we don't do that. Not for this. Beating a guy like this doesn't teach him anything. It just makes him a victim in his own head. We wanted him to understand, and we wanted him to feel it. "We aren't gonna touch you," I said. He let out a breath. "Okay, good. So, I can go." He turned back toward the bus steps, and I grabbed his shoulder. I didn't squeeze hard, just enough to stop him. "I didn't say you could go," I said. "I said we aren't gonna touch you, but you are gonna take a walk." "A walk? Where? It's pouring." It's cold, isn't it? Wet, miserable. I'll get sick." "She's out in it," I said. "And right now, because of you. So you're gonna go see her." "See who?" "Clara," I said. "That's her name. You're gonna memorize it, and you're gonna walk back to that bus stop. It's about 3 miles. Maybe 4. Are you crazy? I have a bus full of people." "They can wait," I said, or they can get off and walk too. "But you're walking." I looked up at the bus. I saw the faces in the windows. I waved. A few people waved back, and they didn't look like they minded the delay. They were watching the show. "Turn around, Speedy," I said. "I can't leave the bus unattended," he argued. "And Teeny will watch it," I said. Tiny smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "I always wanted to drive a bus," he said. Speedy looked at Tiny, then at me, and he realized he had zero control over this situation. "Start walking," I said, pointing south, back the way he came. "I don't have an umbrella," he whined, "and I'll get soaked." "She didn't have an umbrella either," I said. "But you know what? We're not monsters." I reached into my saddlebag and pulled out a spare umbrella, and it was big, black, with the Motor Mafia skull logo on it. I handed it to him. "Take this," I said. He grabbed it, looking relieved. He started to open it over his head, and I stopped him. "That ain't for you." He looked confused. "That's for her," I said. "You carry it. You keep it closed. When we get to Clara, and you open it for her. Until then, you get wet." He looked at the closed umbrella in his hand. He looked at the rain falling in sheets. He looked at the long and gray road stretching back behind us. "This is kidnapping," he muttered. "No," I said. "This is an escort. Start moving." He took the first step, and his fancy work shoes splashed into a puddle. He cringed. "Pick up the pace," I said. "We got a schedule to keep." We fell in. Speedy walked in the middle of the lane, and I walked right next to him, pushing my bike in neutral. Tiny stayed with the bus, but the rest of the pack, they formed a slow, moving parade around us. Engines idling, and rumble, rumble, rumble. Speedy walked fast at first. He wanted it to be over. But after 2 blocks his breathing got heavy. He wasn't in shape. He was used to sitting. I need a break," he panted. "Did she get a break?" I asked. "Did you give her a minute to catch her breath when she was struggling up those stairs?" "No," he whispered. "And then keep walking." Cars passing in the other lane slowed down to watch. People on the sidewalk pulled out their phones. They were recording, and a line of 50 tough-looking bikers escorting a soaking wet bus driver down the middle of Main Street. It was a sight. Water was dripping off Speedy's nose, and his hair was plastered to his skull. His shoes were squishing with every step. Squish, squish, squish. He was miserable. He was shivering violently now. "And why are you doing this?" he asked me, his voice shaking. "It was just one old lady. Why do you care?" I stopped pushing my bike. The whole procession stopped, and I looked him dead in the eye. "Because one day," I said, "that's gonna be you. One day your legs aren't gonna work. Your hands are gonna shake, and you're gonna be standing in the rain praying for a little kindness. And you better hope, Speedy. You better pray to whatever God you believe in, and that the driver coming down the road isn't a guy like you." He stared at me. He didn't say anything. He just swallowed hard. I think, for the first time in his life, and he actually thought about it. He actually imagined himself old, weak, alone. "Keep moving," I said. We walked for another 20 minutes. He was dragging his feet, and he looked defeated. Then, up ahead, I saw the gas station. I saw the bus stop pole. And I saw Rookie standing under the overhang of the station, holding a cup of coffee. And then sitting on a plastic crate, wrapped in a blanket Rookie must have borrowed from the station attendant, was Clara. She was still there. She was waiting for the next bus, and Speedy stopped. He saw her. He saw how small she looked. He saw the mud stains on her coat that he put there. He stopped, shivering for a second. He just stood there, and clutching that closed umbrella like a lifeline. "Go on," I said softly. "Finish the job." "And you ever see a man crumble? I don't mean physically. I mean inside. I've seen tough guys fold in a fight, but this was different, and this was a man realizing that everything he thought about himself, that he was important, that he was busy, that he was right, was a lie." And Speedy stood at the edge of the gas station forecourt. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, flickering a little in the damp air, and Rookie was standing next to Clara like a palace guard. He had his arms crossed, looking mean, but I saw him sneak a glance at Clara to make sure she was okay, and he'd wrapped a wool blanket around her shoulders. She looked like a little bird in a nest. Speedy took a step forward. His shoes squelched, and he was shivering so hard his teeth were actually chattering. Clack, clack. He looked at me. He wanted permission. He wanted me to tell him it was okay to run away, and I just nodded at Clara. Go, I said. He walked up to her. He moved slow like he was walking to the electric chair. Clara looked up. Her eyesight probably wasn't the best, and so she squinted. She saw the blue uniform first. Even soaked in dark with rain, she recognized it. Driver, she asked. Her voice was thin, confused. Did you come back? Speedy froze. He didn't know what to say. He looked at the umbrella in his hand, the one I gave him, and the one he'd been carrying closed for 3 miles while he got drenched. Open it, I growled from behind him. He fumbled with the button. Click, and the big black canopy popped open. He held it over her head, covering her and the crate she was sitting on. He was still standing out in the rain, but she was dry, and he started, but his voice failed him. He cleared his throat. I came back, ma'am. Clara smiled. A real, genuine smile. Oh, that is kind of you. And I was worried I'd missed my appointment completely. Is the bus here? That was the dagger. She thought he came back to pick her up, and she didn't realize he came back because 50 bikers forced him to march through a monsoon. She just saw the good in people. She assumed he had a conscience, and Speedy looked down at his boots. He couldn't handle looking at her face. The bus isn't here, Mom, he said softly. Oh, she said. Her face fell a little. Then, and why are you here? He took a deep breath. I saw his shoulders sag. I'm here to apologize, he said. Speak up, Tiny said from the back of the group. And we can't hear you. Speedy looked at Tiny, then back at Clara. He raised his voice. I'm here to apologize, Mrs. Gable, I supplied. Or Mrs. Higgins, I corrected. And Miss Clara, Mrs. Clara, Speedy repeated. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have closed the door. I shouldn't have left you. Clara looked at him for a long moment, and she reached into her purse. Her hand was shaking, covered in liver spots and paper, thin skin. She pulled out a small packet of tissues, and she reached out and offered it to him. You're soaking wet, son, she said. Wipe your face. That broke him. If she had yelled at him, he could have taken it, and if she had cursed him out, he would have gotten defensive. But kindness, undeserved kindness, that destroys a bully faster than a fist. Speedy stared at the tissues, and his hand trembled as he took them. Thank you, he choked out. It's okay, she said, patting his hand. We all have schedules. I know I move slow, and I didn't mean to hold you up. No, Speedy said. And this time he sounded like he meant it. No, you didn't hold me up, I was just being a jerk. He said the word jerk. He owned it. I splashed you, he said, pointing to the mud on her coat. I ruined your coat. It'll wash, she said. It's old, like me. And it's not okay, Speedy said. He looked at me. It's not okay. Is it? It ain't. I walked over. The boys made a path for me. I stood next to Clara. And so, I said to Speedy, that's not step one. But words are cheap, my friend. Words don't clean coats. Words don't get Mrs. Clara to her doctor. And I can pay for a cab, Speedy said, fumbling for his wallet. I have cash. I slapped his hand down. Put your money away. We don't want your money. Then what? You're gonna wait, I said wet. The next bus? I said. Number 12. It comes every hour, right?
Yeah, should be here in 20 minutes.
Good, I said. You're gonna stand right here. You're gonna hold that umbrella over this lady. You aren't gonna sit down. You aren't gonna check your watch. And you aren't gonna play on your phone. You're gonna stand guard. He said, I can do that? And when the bus comes, I continued, you're gonna help her on. And you're gonna lift that walker. You're gonna pay her fare. And you're gonna make sure the new driver knows to treat her like the Queen of England. You got that? And I got it, he nodded. And one more thing, I said, that coat. He looked at the beige coat stained with dark street sludge. And I want the name of the best dry cleaner in town, I said. You're gonna take it there. You're gonna pay for it. And you're gonna deliver it to her house personally when it's done. I will, he said. I promise. We stood there for 20 minutes. It was a strange scene. In a gas station forecourt, 50 bikers in black leather, smoking cigarettes, drinking coffee, leaning on their machines. And in the middle of it all, a shivering bus driver in a soaking wet uniform, holding a black umbrella, old lady like she was precious cargo. Clara talked to him, and she asked him if he was married. She asked if he had kids. She told him about her grandkids. By the time the next bus rolled around the corner, and Speedy wasn't just a driver anymore. He was a guy named Dave, and he looked different. He looked tired, cold, and humbled. The new bus pulled up. The driver, and a big guy with a mustache, opened the doors. He looked at the bikers, then he looked at Speedy standing there like a drowned rat. "Dave?" the new driver asked. "And what the hell happened to you?" "Dispatch is going crazy. They said your bus is abandoned 3 miles back." "I know, Speedy," Dave said. "I'm walking back to it." "And walking? Are you nuts?" Just give me a minute," Dave said. He turned to Clara. He handed the umbrella to Rookie. He knelt down, right in the wet slush, and so he could be eye level with her. "I really am sorry, Clara," he said. She smiled and touched his cheek. "I forgive you, Dave. Go get dry." He stood up, and he grabbed her walker. He lifted it gently onto the bus. Then he offered her his arm. He helped her up the steps, taking it one slow inch at a time. He didn't rush her, and he didn't sigh. When she was seated safely in the front row, he backed off the bus. "Take care of her, Mike," Dave yelled to the new driver. "And don't you dare move until she's settled." The driver nodded, looking all terrified of the 50 bikers watching his every move. "You got it." The bus pulled away, and Clara waved from the window. We all waved back, even Tiny. Dave stood there watching the taillights fade. He was shivering violently now, and his lips were turning a little blue. I walked up to him. I unzipped my leather vest. I took off my heavy flannel overshirt, the dry one underneath, and tossed it to him. "And put it on," I said, "before you catch pneumonia." He caught it. He looked at me. "Your shirt." You're giving me your shirt? Don't get used to it." I grunted. And don't think we're friends." "But you did the right thing in the end." He pulled the flannel on. It was 3 sizes too big, but it was warm. "Thank you," he said. "And don't thank me," I said her. "She's the one who let you off the hook." I whistled to the boys. "Mount up." The engines roared to life, and the vibration shook the puddles on the ground. "What about my bus?" Dave asked. "It's 3 miles back." I looked at Tiny. Tiny grinned and patted the back of his seat. "And hop on, Cinderella," Tiny shouted over the engine noise. "We'll give you a lift, but you're holding on tight." Dave looked terrified again, but he climbed on the back of Tiny's bike. He looked ridiculous, a bus driver in a biker flannel, clinging to a giant man on a giant machine. But as we pulled out of that gas station, I knew one thing for sure. Dave was never going to leave anyone behind ever again. We rolled back toward his abandoned bus, and the rain was finally stopping. The clouds were breaking apart. We had one last stop to make, and then we were going home, and the ride back to the bus was a lot shorter than the walk. Funny how that works. When you're dragging your feet and carrying the weight of being a screw-up, and a mile feels like 10. When you're riding on the back of a Harley, holding on to guy the size of a refrigerator, the world blurs by pretty fast. The rain had stopped, and the clouds were breaking up, looking like bruised cotton, letting these shafts of sunlight poke through. It made the wet road shine like diamonds. We pulled up to the bus, and it was still sitting there in the middle of the lane, hazard lights blinking clack, click, clack, and a couple of my prospects had stayed behind to direct traffic around it, so nobody had called a tow truck yet. Tiny pulled up right to the door. He leaned the bike over, and, "End of the line, pal," Tiny grunted. "Dave, I can't call him Speedy anymore. He lost that nickname the minute he picked up that umbrella, climbed off." His legs were wobbly, and he looked like a guy who just got off a roller coaster he didn't want to ride. He was still wearing my oversized flannel shirt, and it looked ridiculous over his uniform trousers, but he didn't take it off. He stood there on the asphalt, looking at the big blue bus, and it didn't look like a machine of authority anymore. It just looked like a job, a responsibility. "You okay?" I asked, killing my engine. Dave nodded slowly, and he ran a hand through his messy, drying hair. "Yeah," he said. "Yeah, I never rode a bike before." I asked. "Terrifying," he admitted. But you see everything. You feel everything." "Exactly," I said. "You aren't in a bubble. You're part of the world. And remember that when you climb back into that driver's seat, that glass windshield, it doesn't separate you from us. It just keeps the bugs out of your teeth, and you're still on the same road." He looked at me. He looked at the 49 other guys idling their engines, waiting for the order to roll out. "And I won't forget," Dave said. "I promise. And hey, yeah, the coat. I'll get it cleaned. I'll bring it to her. I swear." "I know you will," I said. "And because if you don't, we'll know. We're everywhere, Dave. Every intersection, every bus stop. We're always watching." I didn't say it like a threat, and I said it like a promise. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his wallet. Can I give you guys something? For the gas? For the trouble?" I laughed, and it was a short bark of a laugh. "Keep your money," I said. "Buy a better alarm clock so you ain't always rushing. And maybe buy a couple of extra umbrellas for the bus." And he smiled. A tired, genuine smile. "Deal." He walked to the bus doors. He used the emergency release to open them from the outside. He climbed up the steps, and he sat in the driver's seat. He didn't start the engine right away. He just sat there for a minute. I saw him look at the empty seat where Clara had struggled, and I saw him adjust his mirrors. Then, he gave a thumbs up through the windshield. I kicked my starter. The bike roared to life. I revved it twice, and the universal sign for, "Let's roll." We peeled off. We didn't block the road this time. We fell into a single file line, letting the traffic flow, and we left Dave to finish his route. I have a feeling the people getting on that bus for the rest of the day got the smoothest, kindest ride of their lives, and we rode back toward the clubhouse. The sun was fully out now. The air smelled like rain and exhaust, the best smell in the world. I started thinking about Etta and Clara and all the other grandmothers sitting in their houses or waiting at bus stops. They're the silent ones. They don't complain, and they don't scream on the internet when their coffee is cold. They come from a time when you just swallowed your pain and kept moving, and they carry a lot of history in those fragile bones, and that makes them targets. Bullies like Speedy. Before he was Dave, they look for the weak spots, and they look for the people who can't fight back. They think because a woman walks with a cane, she doesn't matter. They think because her voice is quiet and she doesn't have anything to say. But they forget something. They forget that every grandmother was once a mother, and mothers raise sons, and some of those sons grow up to be doctors. Some grow up to be lawyers, and some of us, we grow up to be the Motor Mafia, and we might not look like the heroes in the storybooks. We don't wear patches. We don't have superpowers. We have horsepower, but the job is the same, and we protect the pack. And the pack isn't just the guys wearing the vest. The pack is anyone who can't throw a punch for themselves. The world is getting faster, ladies, and everybody is rushing. Everybody is looking at a screen instead of a face. Kindness is becoming an endangered species. But as long as there is gas in these tanks, and you aren't alone. If you're sitting there right now, maybe feeling a little invisible, maybe feeling like the world is moving too fast and leaving you behind, and I want you to know something. We see you. We see the struggle, we see the strength, and we got your six. You keep being the sweet, tough, cookie-baking warriors you are, and you keep holding your heads up high. And if anyone, and I mean anyone, tries to close a door on you, or push you around, or treat you like you don't matter, and just remember the sound of thunder. We're never far away. We're the sons you never knew you had, and we don't like bullies. So, here is the deal, and we're building an army. Here, an army of people who believe that respect never goes out of style. An army that stands up for the grandmas. If you're ready to ride with us, and if you want to be part of the family that protects the innocent, smash that subscribe button. Join the Motor Mafia. Let's make the world a little safer, and one bully at a time. I'm gonna go home now. I think I'm gonna call my grandma. She hates it when I ride in the rain, so I won't tell her about that part, and I'll just tell her I met a nice lady named Clara. She'll like that. Be safe out there. Watch the road, and be kind. This is Jax, signing off.